So there's a quote from Cornel West where he says that justice is what love looks like in public. And that is something that I find myself coming back to a lot, because I think that ultimately justice ideally will look like communities and societies wherein we all care for each other in a way that ensures that everybody has access to the resources and the opportunities and the support that they need to live a fulfilled and fulfilling life. To me, I think that everybody should have the opportunities that I have been lucky to have myself, and the opportunities to decide what they want for their lives and who they are and how to achieve it. So for me, justice is really critical, because I think without justice, it's hard for somebody to live the life that they want to. And I would also say, going back to an earlier point, I think for me, from a maybe more academic or technical sense, justice is really critically important to me as a cornerstone of advancing development. And I'm a big believer, we can make the world a better place. It requires work, it's not easy, and I think that justice is one of the tools and avenues through which we can do that.
It's about creating a society where, regardless of their background or circumstances, they can seek and receive support to address their legal and structural issues. And for that, we need also preventive strategies. And these things, I think this is a big aspect of it, to be sure that the legal system it's not the only way we are addressing injustice in general. Preventive strategies such as education and social security and health issues are crucial to understanding what justice really means.
That's a great question. I was very lucky, I would say, growing up in a family that really prioritized social justice. And I had a lot of really great role models from a young age of people who were working in mission-driven spaces and working to challenge status quos. After I finished my undergraduate studies, I had the opportunity to spend 2 years working in Belize City with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And while I was working there, my job as a volunteer was with an organization called Hand in Hand Ministries that provides housing support to people in Belize City and Belize more broadly who are experiencing housing insecurity. And that experience really shaped my opinion of poverty as the result of social and political failing, and highlighted to me the deep interconnectedness of economic development, policy, justice, international governance and interactions, and really drove me to then pursue work, first graduate school to enable me to do the work, and then to pursue work more at the global level, my goal is, in my career to hopefully have some sort of small positive impact on policy discussions and driving systemic change, so that from communities in Belize City, in New Jersey, where I grew up, in Washington, D.C., where I now live, and in other communities around the world, ensuring that people are able to live fulfilled lives where they have access to what they need.
So after high school, I went into law school, and I didn't know what to do. Sometimes I think it's important for other young people and adults to listen that sometimes we're a little bit lost too. I wanted to go to law school. It kind of sounded like I could do something with it. We don't have our things figured out from the beginning, and we're still kind of trying to figure it out. And I went to law school. I really wanted to be a human rights lawyer because I fell in love with public international law and human rights law. But after that, I thought that I understood that sometimes the law came too late, or the justice system came too late. So that's why I went to public policy, to understand that prevention is very important, and we need good public policies that are evidence-based to prevent the injustice in the first place.
I started my advocacy journey at 10 years old. I didn't really know what I was doing, but when I saw that a lot of children, a lot of girls especially, were out of school, and that going to school was not the norm for me. I used to go to school every single day with my dad. He was a strong feminist. He used to defy the norms with me together with my mom, but that was not the reality for a lot of children. These children were sitting in construction sites, just aiding their families to earn a living wage as low as $2. The only thing they could think of at the time was getting access to more money to feed their families and not education. But I wanted that to change because our Constitution reads that education is a fundamental right. So why were these kids out of school? And that's when I started with a simple question: how can I get these kids in school? My mom told me you can do something as simple as getting these kids into our home and teaching them. If you were a first grader, teach them something at the level of a kindergartner. You can do that. And that's how I started. From one child, it sprung into a global movement of 100,000 young people. I reached over 1 million people through my radio show where I talked about important issues concerning gender injustices, inequalities, and how we can ensure everybody has access to their equal rights, be it in education or menstrual health or climate justice. I covered a variety of topics that resonated with the audiences. And then I started partnering with governments, multilateral organizations like the UN, UNICEF, UNDP, UN Women, and now I'm here, decade later, still fighting for the same issues. I want to ensure that every girl gets access to their rights without having to fight for it. Why is your gender such a strong determinant of you having to face these struggles? Why does your gender have to dictate the amount of money you get in the workforce? Why does your gender have to dictate the life you live? You should be given the same rights as any other human being. And that is what my lifelong fight will be until the day I die. Because I don't want an 18-year-old girl fresh out of high school get out and fight for her rights just how I had to after my dad passed away. Because everyone in my family felt that this would be the right time to get me married off as a child bride. That's not right, and that's what I'm never going to let happen to any other girl under my watch.
Young people can play a really, really important role in a few different ways. I think first and foremost, young people have new ideas that we desperately need. The current approaches in the global justice system, in the global discourse, are not working, as evidenced by the persistence of the global justice gap and related shortcomings. So it's clear that we need something to change. And I believe that youth and young adults have new ideas, new visions, and new ways of not only seeing the world, but engaging with it. So I think that that energy and enthusiasm and willingness to challenge the status quo is really, really critical. I would also say that youth and young adults can bring a willingness to evolve. I think that sometimes youth and young people can bring the willingness to push back against that and reimagine a better and more effective world.
Young people need to understand and to, of course, this is we also need spaces, but we need to understand that we can be leaders too, and I think that's kind of hard sometimes because we don't get the space. But we think outside the box. We also connect with local problems in a different way because we kind of go into the mud. That's how we say in Spanish. We kind of like go and talk to the people, and sometimes it's important, and sometimes adults don't do that. They stay in an office, and we need that part too. But at the same time, the good thing about young people is that we're not scared of thinking outside the box, of going down to the field and understanding and knowing that problem, we can understand and find new innovative solutions. So I think that's a big part of it.
I think young people are the key decision makers in today's day and age. We no longer are a demographic that somebody has to cater to. We no longer are tokenistic symbols that somebody has to check off their demographic list. We are the key decision makers. We are no longer just people who come here as mouthpieces of a specific organization. We are here with our own voices, opinions, and thoughts, and we hold our own set of expertise in specific areas. I have friends who are working actively in the climate justice arena. I have friends who are working actively in the SDG 16 arena. And I have friends like me who work across all of the 17 different SDGs. So young people today are more than ready to not only have a seat at the table, but if time comes, create the table themselves. They are not waiting for an opportunity to knock on the door or for somebody to tell them to do or to take action. They're already taking action, and they're amplifying that action into tangible impact across the world. Young people are beyond seats at the table. They're more than ready to take the table, get concrete action out, and translate that into real world impact. Can you share some key takeaways from the intergenerational dialogue?
Okay, thank you, Anoushka, for the question. I think I'm feeling very optimistic about our future as young leaders. I think a lot of the adults in the room kind of explained how we are having more, they're opening more spaces for us, and how they're learning a lot from us. And I think that we're learning a little bit from them too. So I think I'm feeling very optimistic that we're going to have good partnerships in the future. And I think that also it was incredible to listen to my fellow justice leaders, so we can cross-pollinate a little bit of our work. That was a big part of it too.
Thanks. And building off of Eva, what you just said, I think one of my key takeaways from today's event is the real importance for everybody in the justice space to take youth seriously and to trust in youth and young adult leaders and activists to know what we're talking about and know what we're asking for, and to not set us to the side, but to really be willing to be challenged by youth and young leaders in order to advance justice.
How do you think young people can be more actively involved in advancing justice and the rule of law globally?
Thank you. I think after the conversation we had today, something I took notes of is that sometimes we have to knock the door and not wait until they give us a space. I think that if we want to change lots of unequal structures that we have, we cannot wait until they come to us or they give us a space, or because that's not how it's currently working. We have to continuously knock on their door and ask for specific change. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from our conversation too.
Amazing. What about you, Grace?
I absolutely agree, Eva, with that point. I think Ambassador Kamani's remarks underscoring the power of recent youth movements in Kenya was a stark reminder to me that, as young people, I think that we have an obligation to, take responsibility for the world and for our future. And that can look like a lot of different things, but I know sometimes I can find it, and I'm sure others do too, kind of daunting to think about how do we drive global change,
Absolutely.
right? So for me, I think it was a good reminder to be thinking about the global trends, but also to like work locally and to show up in our local communities, to show up in, to vote in local elections, to engage local politicians and actors and your community, and work your way up through the grassroots. And to your point, Eva, to knock on doors and to keep knocking on them even when people don't want to hear us. So I think that's really important. And I think, there's ways to do it in the justice space and across other sectors. And hopefully, we can continue to work together too. I think collaboration was a huge theme that was very important. So.
Wow, that was amazing, guys. Until next time.